So welcome everybody to TTG's latest Agent Matters. I'm Jennifer Morris, the news editor, and I'm joined today by three fantastic agents. We've got Shona Thorne, who is director at Thorne Travel, Lee Harrison, director at Malvern World Travel, and Helen Furlong, PTA at Mid Counties Co-op. Welcome everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it's a really busy day today, especially after last night's news about CMV. But if you don't mind, if we could kick off just by you each sort of running us through a little bit about who you are and your business and sort of how you found things and how you're finding things at the moment, if that's okay. And that's a bit of a big question, but yeah, a bit of an introduction would be fab. Shona, if we could start with you.
I have Thorne Travel up in Scotland, and we're on the west coast of Ayrshire, which is lovely and sunny today for a wee change. It's been a challenging time. Last night's news, not unexpected, but still not what MD wanted to hear. Such a lovely company, really great to deal with, and have been a great support to me over the last 11 years. So really disappointed to see that they've gone. I think that's just part and parcel of things that are going on just now. I think there'll be more changes to come. Hopefully we can start to see some grassroots coming through. But from the team point of view, we've got a mixture back in the shop, some working from home, some still furloughed. So a bit of a mixture all over for me. So that's where we are.
Yeah. Thank you, Shona. How about you, Lee?
Yes, we're in Malvern in Worcestershire. We work as part of the Travel Network Group as well, Choice Plus, which I've done with my wife. Well, we've been part of the Travel Network Group in various different guises for over 26 years now, but the last 10 years working from home. You might see a lovely bit of blue sky behind us. Hopefully, we're trying to promote some blue skies to our clients, and like everybody else, it is a bit difficult out there at the moment, and let's hope things get moving. And yes, like Shona mentioned with CMV, our thoughts were with all the staff, the crew, and the members of the management, particularly at this time. It's all very well for Grant Shapps to saying they're boosting consumer trust in the aviation and travel sector, but the maritime sector is really, really suffering at the moment and needs all of our help.
Absolutely. Helen, I think you've got a slightly different specialism, haven't you? Sort of winter sports and things. So maybe less impacted by CMV, but are you okay to fill us in a little bit about you and your role?
Yes, well, I work for my husband. We are the skiing furlongs, but he's actually a furloughed furlong at the moment. I've been carrying on because it's obviously our own business under the umbrella of PTA with Mid Counties. I used to only specialise in ski, but I stopped that 3 years ago. It's still a main part of our business, but I actually do cruise, long haul, everything now. So actually I do have a CMV.
Okay.
Booking to deal with one of my few cruises, which was really sad because they were so nice to deal with and really helpful as not a cruise expert. So we were impacted very, very early on with the last month of the ski season, pretty much lost. So we were in it quite quickly, but the summer bookings have been affected. But ski is really starting to pick up quite strongly for the winter, reduced capacity, so not as much choice as we would like to see. But things are starting to move now in the right direction.
Yeah, brilliant. Don't mean to start on a kind of negative note, but obviously the CMV news, as we said, Shona, was, we had heard that there were financial difficulties for the line. I mean, is it something that you're having to kind of now prepare for in terms of other failures coming up? Are you having to put sort of plans in place to deal with, eventualities like this? Because it's such a sudden change, isn't it? A kind of company goes into administration and suddenly everything's cancelled. There's no kind of warning. There's no real warning. So is that something that you're having to kind of plan for going forward, expecting more failures, unfortunately, from cruise lines or operators and other suppliers?
That's it. It's a mixture of failures and cancellations, like we talked about earlier on. Suddenly you're getting flights cancelled because they're not as busy, which you understand. So it's trying to prepare as much as you can so that you've got that little bit of, you'll fat with your team, as being able to say, can you come back just shortly? So like of today, we've had to bring people back in off furlough for a couple of days so we can look at the admin side, because it's a huge amount of admin that goes with a failure from the start. But I think more so from the people's point of view, because the first thing you want to do is phone all your customers. Because the worst thing is they hear in dribs and drabs. So it's like a full blown straight into, we've got a full pack now that says this is what we do. we phone our customers to let them know what's happening, and then we look and see what's going to be the administration part for us, so that we can then go forward with administration, because it can be quite time consuming to go through the full thing. And what you don't want is customers to lose even more confidence, because if they hear about it in dribs and drabs, it's not the ideal way for them. And it starts to breed, is that the first company? Is there going to be more? Is there going to be more? Whereas if there's no questions asked about it, it's just done quickly, then people will move on quite quickly. So I think the big bit for us was we just got through our credit notes for all the ones that had been cancelled through from that. So you know, it's trying to make sure that we're preparing as much as you can in advance to make sure that every single piece of paperwork that you need to have attached to a booking is attached to a booking.
Yeah.
Because when somebody goes down, you've got no way of getting any of that paperwork back. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, challenging times.
Yeah, definitely. Is that the same for you, Lee? Have you been affected at all by the CMV failure? Any bookings?
Not so much CMV, but we basically are very much in mind of the atoll situations at the moment, and what the end of the month could bring, certainly with new companies having to maybe relicense, how many of those might not. So yeah, it's obviously very worrying. We try to keep an eye, and we have a very good idea on which companies, obviously, that we're a little bit wary of from time to time. Obviously, when Cook's went down, which nobody likes to see, but we had steered clear of booking people at that sort of time.
Are there, I mean, I'm not asking you to name names, but are there companies that you're sort of steering clear of at the moment, unfortunately, or is it too difficult to tell in such a kind of unprecedented situation?
Not particularly. I mean, there's those that have been very unhelpful feelings at the moment, and we're obviously going to be bearing those in mind. And I think with this new information that came out from the government, which wasn't very, very helpful at all, and the way that the refunds are still there very much, and how companies still haven't actually reacted on their websites. Even Abta still today hasn't changed its notification about 14-day refunds yet.
Well, there wasn't actually any kind of mention of that, was there, in the official government release? Is that something you expect any kind of update on, the sort of 14-day refund window for the PTRs, or do you think too much time's passed now and that's not going to be forthcoming?
Well, I think the horse is bolted, and I mean, the only sort of analogy I can see with the information that's come through, we all know what a thermostat does. It keeps hot things hot and keeps cold things cold. But if you put hot tea in and put an ice choc in there, it's not going to have such a good effect. It's just like being a chocolate teapot. So the advice on the refund credit notes is 4 months too late in coming out with that. And basically because the PTRs are very much still there. That's the thing that needed to be amended, which would have helped tour operators, would have helped travel agents, and the media out there at the moment, because they haven't got a clue what the difference between the tour operator and the travel agent is. They keep getting us mixed up, and that doesn't help us either. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, so obviously we had this kind of big grand announcement at the weekend from the government and also from the CAA, basically just clarifying what I think most of us already knew, that, you know, the government was going to back refund credit notes. Is that something, I think the overarching message has been, you know, it's welcomed, but as you've mentioned, just far too late. I mean, Helen, I think you've been quite outspoken about this, about the refund situation. You know, is that something that you know, were glad to see, or is it just pointless?
I just feel it's quite pointless at this stage. It's so late. You know, we started cancelling holidays back from the 6th or 8th of March. And to be honest, I haven't got a refund credit note with any customer at the moment. I pushed for the refunds and pushed really hard and did get 95% of them. I'm just waiting on the last couple that have been agreed but haven't actually landed back yet. Because if they had a very long date on them, it was just, in my mind, it was just too long to be sat there with something that nobody really could say in law was going to be covered. Just so wishy-washy. To explain that to a customer was just, I wasn't going to say they're fully covered when I didn't know that myself. So I found it really, the RCN's the most challenging thing, really.
Is it something that you feel more confident now sort of offering and pushing, or are you still not going to?
I prefer not to, really. It's so late now. I mean, I haven't got a lot of bookings. I'm almost done up until November. So for future, who knows what's going to be happening, you know, going forward. For instance, if we had a second wave and ski got cancelled for the season, sounds awful, but you know, those sort of things we've got to start thinking about any scenario, because so much has happened.
Yeah.
What's going to happen next?
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Shona and Lee? I mean, the refund credit notes, was that welcome news to you, or similar message to Helen, really?
No, it's not welcome to me at all. Most of our customers we'd already had conversations with.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't bothered over whether they were bonded or not. That wasn't the issue. The issue has been for our customers is they have paid for something that they've not got. So by law, they should get a refund for it. They didn't want a credit note, regardless of whether it was bonded, unbonded, or whatever. That's not a big issue for a lot of customers. And I think where it puts us in a really poor position, especially from a media point of view, if customers book direct and pay with a credit card, it's a straightforward cashback and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just do it that way. They don't wait for credit vouchers, etc. Whereas they're having to do it through us, so it's another obstacle again. And I think just raising it up, all it's done is reinforce, if I book through there, I'm going to get a credit voucher. Because it's the one thing that we now get when somebody makes a booking is, can you guarantee me if this gets cancelled, I'll get a refund? I don't want a credit voucher.
Oh.
So I just think it's an unnecessary thing to have came back out again with. I think the focus should more have been on the fact is, what can tour operators do to make sure that they start refunding customers? Mm-hmm. You know, I had a conversation with a cruise line the other day there who said, first of all, 60 days, then it was 90 days for a refund. Only to be told there again on Tuesday that the 90 days starts from the date of the customer's actual holiday was due to travel on them, rather than from the date that they cancelled it, which is absolute nonsense. We've got people from April who have still not had refunds.
Really? From April?
From April, and they've not had the cruise certificates through either to say they've got the future cruise certificate. So there's not, from a customer's point, a feel-good factor in it at all. I think the focus has been on a piece of paper when really we need to look at the bigger picture and say, why can't they refund? Why wasn't the funds there? What do we need to start looking at? Because if they've not got the funds there and they've got the forward bookings, then we're in a lot more trouble than what we actually think we're in.
Yeah, good point. Would you agree with that, Lee? I think you've also been quite outspoken on the topic.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's the time factor in all of this and the frustrations involved. I mean, working from home with myself and my wife, I mean, we can't furlough each other, but we seem to be working even harder, just chasing and chasing files and where it's at. Customers hopefully see, you know, what we are doing slightly, but their frustrations are even greater than ours, and quite rightly so. And it frustrates me to see yesterday, for instance, the Great Rail Journeys still on their website is saying that, you know, basically, as of yesterday, they will cancel holidays. Customers have full flexibility to transfer the date of their existing holiday to later in 2020 or 2021. But they will issue a refund credit note for any impacted bookings. They should be stating, or we will offer you a cash refund within 14 days. That's under the new civil aviation regulations. And of course, with the media speculation, our customers are going to come to us and say, well, you know, 14 days, where's my refund? Yeah. Much as we'd like to give it, that's a scenario at the moment. And even ABTA's advice as well, that needs to change now. And it's still saying, you know, much as we'd like to give it to you in 14 days, the scenario under COVID is not allowing us to do that. That's where the government should have stepped in a lot earlier.
Because I suppose it's, you know, full balances are becoming due and things. It's not like the refund situation is behind us necessarily, is it? It's kind of I'm sure it's still a daily challenge for you all.
Yeah, and as Helen said, if we go through a second phase as well, I mean, it's, the government's advice at the moment was those vouchers up until September 2020. And then obviously they could get a cash refund to 2021, but those bookings are going to be beyond September 2020 are still probably going to have those COVID conditions. And then obviously the clients are going to need the insurance behind themselves as well to make sure they've got that covered too.
Yeah, I think
on the refund front, I think, I think most agents, certainly all the agents that I've spoken to, we wanted to give the money back to the customer. It was the right thing to do. That was the trustworthy thing to do. That's what the law said. So not to be able to do that, and with suggestions maybe in the media that we were withholding money and that sort of thing, it was really kind of unfair on an agent because the money wasn't held by us. And that wasn't made clear at any stage through the media at all. And I think that to suggest that some agents wanted a refund and others didn't is kind of misleading. We all felt that customers should have had their money back. And then they can choose, a lot of our customers are loyal, they'll choose to book with us again. They're not going somewhere else. They want to hold on to their money for no reason. And also certain tour operators are very naughty in refunding direct customers within days, and us having to wait months to get the refunds back through to the customers.
That's interesting. How have you found out about that? Is that from kind of clients saying, "Oh, my friends had a refund"?
Yes, or it's all over the web. It's all over forums, everywhere. And actually, social media, I think, was quite powerful in starting to push tour operators to make the refunds, because they started to see it was going past the point of their reputations were really starting to get damaged on operators. But there was definitely a case of, I know they'll say maybe administration, if it's got to go back through the head office and back to the customer, might cause delays, but not a delay of 2.5 months, maybe 3 months. So I think tour operators maybe could have treated the agent with a little bit more respect in paying back to us, to our customers, a bit quicker.
Yeah. Are there many that are kind of like, come out shining from this, or does it depend on the booking? Are some of them kind of good sometimes and then bad sometimes, or is it very much, in your mind, which ones are going to, react well?
When you're looking at bookings, you're definitely thinking about what's happened with your past bookings and the refunds. It's indelible on your mind forever. Ingham's did particularly well, really helpful, timely once they got organised. Our own in-house tour operator, Co-op Holidays, had a policy 2 weeks, and everybody was refunded within that 2 weeks. So, then really, you're keen to work with these people again, because you know that the customer's being looked after.
Yeah, definitely.
We have the same with the Travel Network Group, and we have our own flights department through Dynamic. And we found there the flight refunds were very quick coming through compared to a lot of the other ones that we've been chasing through other operators. And we really feel that we've had the backup that we've been expecting from our consortium, which has been brilliant.
Same here. It's at times like this you realise when you're working for a good organisation, and that's not just saying, "Oh, this is the best," but the backup was there. They were trawling through the legal things and helping us to understand it, and that's important, because we're not lawyers. To interpret some of these instructions that were coming out needed a lawyer. They were very, very complex, particularly early on. So that help was being invaluable.
Do you feel the same, Shona? Do you feel like you've kind of got a bit of a handle on who and what to work with now?
I think before we were very keen to make sure it was always right for the customer. So we had a huge amount of choice. I think looking at it now, what's right for the customer sometimes is to say and be honest with the customer and say the after service hasn't been the best. So yes, we can use that company if you really want us to, but there are some negatives behind it. And there's certainly been some companies who have shocked me, if I'm being honest, because when all things were going really well, they've always been great. But now that it's a different situation, and I think that's very much from a customer's point of view as well, as we sit in front of a customer just now, they want to know that we're going to do the best for them. And if you know that that's going to mean that you're going to have to wait for 5 months if something goes wrong, especially if we do a spike, then we don't want to be in that situation, because the hours of work it takes, I think everybody's in the same boat. We're all working really long hours. We've all got the, I don't know about MD, but I've got the tired eyes and all the rest of it. Your 6 days, you're living on the caffeine and the wine, trying to get you through. Nobody wants to be in that situation. I had to sit yesterday for 4.5 hours onto a supplier. That shouldn't be the case.
Gosh,
to have a conversation to say, I've still not received an invoice back through to refund my customer, and they were due in May. It's not somebody was only expecting an invoice from a couple of days ago. We've been chasing this and chasing this. To get to that stage, it's just nonsense. And as you say, sometimes it is. And I just put in a call to the commercial team and said, this needs to be happening. This needs to be refunded for this customer now. She was due away on holiday in April. We said to her she would get it back in May. We're now sitting at the end of July and they're telling me another 8 weeks. That's absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
And it's getting refunded within the next 2 weeks now, but it shouldn't take that length of time. And you just think, oh God, I don't really want to put another booking through there because that is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah. And we were talking briefly before we went live about also being able to actually get through to, at the moment to make new bookings, I suppose actually very quickly, firstly, to touch on that, are you all kind of, seeing a steady increase in bookings? Would you say it's looking positive the last few weeks, especially since obviously the travel corridors or non-reciprocal corridors were announced? Has that kind of helped in the last few weeks for you all?
Yeah,
inquiries have come through. We're still waiting for people to make up those minds and decisions. And I think as the news is changing day by day, people are still wary. But it's nice, I think, that this last week, now that we're getting the sort of green shoots, we know that the flights are up in the air. We're getting reports, some great blogs from Sunville, for instance, this week coming out of Greece. And hopefully, when people see those, we have a lovely resort we work with on the island of Kos, and I know the agents there are showing us daily what they're doing in conjunction with the accommodation owners to make sure that holidays are starting. So the more that we can get that out to people, and I'm sure that those bookings, now the school holidays have just come in into the UK, will start flowing.
Yeah,
Fingers
crossed. Insurance companies have finally upped their game, and a lot more cover there for COVID-related issues. And I think people would have been, whether the planes were flying or not, I think there would have been a reluctance if the insurance companies hadn't started to include some COVID or more and more COVID cover. I think crucial, really. We're going away on Sunday to try it out for ourselves. We're flying into Italy and going to France. So I'll be doing some blogs on that, just to show customers, what it's like, and, just to try it out for ourselves as well. Because I think confidence is coming back. I think 2021 is going to be quite buoyant. People will be desperate to get away.
Yeah.
And I think people have just got to are very mindful of having to be sensible to protect ourselves from this second wave, or whatever they're calling it. That would be a double whammy, really, if that starts. Yeah.
Let's fingers crossed that won't happen. Shona, obviously it's been a little bit different for you guys in Scotland because you've only just sort of had the go ahead for Spain, which is obviously such a huge destination for the whole of the UK, I think. But has that been, was that presumably welcome news last night? I think it was, wasn't it?
It was welcome news last night, and I think that's where we thought, oh, this is quite good. I think for us, obviously we are nearly 3.5 weeks into our summer holidays now. In fact, nearly 4 weeks into our summer holidays. So we've only got really 3 weeks left of the school holidays before they go back. If I'm being honest, do I see a mad rush of summer bookings? No, I don't see it now. I definitely don't see it. I've just actually priced up one for someone just now for October, a flight that's been cancelled. And it's £1,000 more than what it was when she booked it.
Gosh. To
travel out the day after now, because I've cancelled our flight from the day before. That's not going to encourage customers in any shape or form. I think what we have seen is we have seen a great increase in 2021. That's been really good for us, and we've kind of focused now and said, look, we accept the fact that there isn't going to be a mad rush for us for the summer. That just doesn't seem to be, the people don't seem to be confident enough right now. We're the same as yourselves. So we've got, Christiane and John going out this weekend. They're going to Paris so they can do the walk-through flights, like people see what they've been doing. We've also asked a couple of customers who have went out just now so they can do it. So it's people that they can relate to, as well as we've got quite a lot from like our reps that are out in resort. It doesn't feel real. It's not like somebody they know. Whereas we thought it'd be quite good for us to go out. So very similar to go out and give them that feel good factor. But I think from our point of view, as we're looking at October onwards, but mindful of where we're looking to position them, whereas normally we do a lot of Christmas markets. That's a massive market for us. The reality is, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket and say, this is where we need to be. I think we're spreading it out a lot more this time. But 2021 Easter onwards looks really good already. Customers are feeling confident with that and would rather book that. Our biggest problem has been people wanted to stay here. And staycations have been so hard to get, really, really hard, because there's just not the availability. And which is something that's not been talked about for us, is a big thing up here, is coach travel.
Yeah. There's a protest yesterday, wasn't there?
Yeah.
It was Honk for Hope, I think it was called.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right, with the demise of shearings, although I think it's sort of been resurrected in some way. But
it's bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, talk us to us about coach travel then in Scotland. So was that quite a big part of your bookings beforehand?
It is part of a big part of bookings, but it's also from the point of view as we get a lot of foreigners who come over. They fly into Scotland, they want to travel round about. So we can quite often pick up a bit of business from there, not just people who are living in Scotland. But again, we can't put them on coaches. No sign of when that's going to happen, which also has an impact on the hotels round about, which from people who want to do staycations and maybe want to go and stay in nice hotels. We've got a beautiful hotel here that's right on our doorstep that we normally can pack out quite easily. That's still closed. They're not looking at reopening because they don't see the overseas visitors coming back quickly enough. Because we've been a little bit later behind than, say, England. People who were looking to go have maybe went to the English resorts. So again, that's had a bigger impact on us as well. But with no coach travel predicted, it has a massive impact for people who we want to do staycations, who don't drive and want to get to places. So yeah, a big impact. I think maybe a bit more needs to be talked about that as well if we want to try and keep the money within the UK. Yeah, especially if we get a second spike.
Yeah, definitely.
We have a very good coach company that we use, which is Johnson's of Henley and Arden, which I must admit the bookings that we have had to change, they've been absolutely fantastic in the way that they've refunded. And I really hope for their sakes, they've just started, I believe, in the last week or so, putting their program back on the road again. And I really hope they get the support from everybody, because they're such a great company to work with. And the drivers looking after their clients. But it's a market where the social distancing does have a need, and has maybe put a few people off.
And maybe the age demographic of people that go on coach tends to be, can be young people, but there's a large number of older people who go by coach, and obviously they're quite an affected section of the community for COVID reasons. They're more, deemed to be more at risk. So that's really a challenge as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Just very quickly to touch on what we did mention before, some of you have mentioned that you've actually, you're having difficulty getting through to operators and suppliers to sort of progress new bookings. Why do you think that is? Is that just down to them not having perhaps enough staff on, or just the sheer volume of inquiries they're getting?
I think
it's down to
furlough, yeah. The furlough situation. I think a lot of people are still working at home, and one of the frustrating things as well is that when you do get through, we're well set up, we work from home all the time, but I think when they've had to set up very quickly working from home, the quality of the sound is often not good, it breaks up, you can't hear, because they're working on internet-based phone systems. So there's a lot of challenges with people not back into offices at the moment. I think that's probably
the logistics that a lot of these operators have, that they can still now have people working from home, and they're still missing big opportunities, we feel, from not opening up at the weekends. It is so frustrating to lose a booking on a Saturday and then have to find another operator that's open that maybe you haven't thought of putting that booking with, but just for the sake of the client wanting to book, that's who you go with. So I think they need to look at that themselves in this sort of time. And it's a lot easier now for making Zoom calls and all sorts of things that we're getting used to, those bookings could come through into fruition.
I think that working sort of 9 to 5 Monday to Friday from tour operators, it's time for that start easing. We're not working 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, so I think, you know, we need a little bit more of an effort if we're going to get things kick-started.
Yeah, because I think often that's been reserved for kind of crisis situations, hasn't it? But I suppose we're in an ongoing crisis situation, and who knows, like, as you say, when it's going to end. It could be another year or so, and I suppose need the sort of support there to help.
I think you also have to think is customers are online so much more now because they don't want to leave the house. So they want answers quickly, they're used to it. So if you've got an online company that can work so many hours and they can do it from home, there should be no reason why any of our operators can't do it. There's not, you know, we've all managed to do it within the space of a week. I've been able to get up and running from home. I don't see the reason why you wouldn't, apart from a cost situation. And I understand the cost, but it's kind of like that chicken and egg. If you don't put the hours in for us to be able to, you know, to book with you, you won't get the sales, so you won't get the money. So it's, you know, it's making that decision time. Is it time to step up now? And I think if they don't do it now, that's when you'll lose out, because it will be our online companies that we can book through that you'll end up having to book through, which might not always be the best option. But as you say, if they're the only one, if it's the only way you can book it on a Saturday, you might do it, but you might have a preferred operator who you like the customer service from.
You've got
you'd rather go there.
Yeah, if you've got a £25,000 booking coming through and they want to book it there and then, you're not going to wait for the operator to open on a Monday.
No, that does seem less strange to me. I don't think I actually realised that that was the sort of case with most operators. Are there any, even the big ones? Are they not open at the weekends?
A lot of the big ones are not.
Gosh, oh, there we go. Very quickly, guys. I'm conscious of time, and I know you're all very, very busy at the moment. Just a little bit about. We talked again just before the call about the kind of. As you said, you're going to be going out. Some of your teams are going to be going out to kind of talk people through the airport experience and everything. These new passenger locator forms and things. I think, Shona, you had an interesting example of where that's kind of slightly fallen through the cracks. I don't know if you're able to share that with us.
We had one where a customer, well, somebody who lives out in Tenerife came back in, went to Prestwick Airport, didn't know about the form, didn't know they were meant to fill one in, flew with a particular Irish airline, and came back in. They weren't told about it on the aircraft or anything, arrived into the airport and were just waved through. Nobody asked them anything. They've stayed here for a week and now flown back to Tenerife, and yeah, it's a bit concerning. Since then, we made it known to the Scottish Government, and instantly there was emails everywhere, and the airlines have all now come out, especially up here, I don't know about anywhere else, have been coming out and saying this is where you have to fall into. My bit of concern is whose responsibility is it? You know, just now if somebody needs a visa, we recommend you go to the Foreign Office and website and see what visas you need. We will help customers where possible, but at the end of the day, it is their responsibility. Is that the same for, you know, when we come back? There's not been much clarity on that at all. And there's not been much talked about on the news to say this needs to be done. It's kind of just been put in there and not a lot of discussion about it at all. I know some of the big tour operators have now put it on, and they've sent emails out to agents and they've sent it out to customers who have booked direct with the link. But for the smaller operators, I don't see anything at all for that. And I just think from the government's point of view, it's been quite a kind of sneaky way put out, just been kind of put out there. It's a bit like you can go to all these different holiday resorts, but in reality, no, we can't, because a lot of those places won't accept us. So it's kind of like we've thrown it out there to say you can travel to almost all over the world, but in reality you can't, because once you look at the forms you don't fit into it. So I just think there needs to be a lot more clarity in there, and maybe even, as you said before, the form isn't exactly the most simplest form, whereas the ones maybe going to Spain and Greece, they're quite simple and easy to do in the space of a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Especially some of our older clients, to try and do that in resorts, that's going to be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. And actually,
some of these forms that you're saying, Shona, we have our first clients going off to Croatia tomorrow, which they're very much looking forward to. And you fill in, they'll look at the Croatia form, and the first thing it says is you must put the form on your windscreen.
Right. Gosh.
So, yeah, it's fine if you're driving in, but if you're on an aircraft and coming off it,
Your challenge.
Yeah, I think so. I flew back from Ibiza, and we were told by the cabin crew to, I think it was by the cabin crew, maybe it was by TUI directly, but they said to kind of go online and fill out the one for returning. But as I said, when I got to the airport, so many people there hadn't done that and were kind of really confused and had to go off to a different queue. And it's something that, especially perhaps for older clients, to do it on your phone. I'm quite used to doing that, you know, and I just did it and it was frustrating. And some of the questions, they weren't even relevant. It was saying, you know, you're going to have to quarantine. But this was after the sort of 10th of July date where I didn't have to quarantine because I was coming back from Spain. And they hadn't actually said that, but that could really throw a client, couldn't it? If they don't have anyone there to ask and to clarify that. So
I don't believe that there's a hard copy anyway.
No.
So Sheena, our head of PTA, did a test run back through Birmingham Airport this week. She deliberately didn't complete the form before arrival just to see what happened. And you either had to do it on your form or somebody sat with you with an iPad and helped you with it. So there wasn't a hard copy, a paper copy of the form available, whether there is generally or whether that's just Birmingham Airport, I'm not sure. There's certainly was delays in going back through customs home.
Yeah, it's definitely one of these things, isn't it, that needs, you kind of need everybody to be doing it, or not at all, but it needs to, you know, everyone to be cooperating for it to work.
But not everybody has the technology either.
No.
Not everyone is tech savvy, and on this public health passenger locator form, it does say it shows at the border by either printing a copy or showing it on your electronic device. But 48 hours beforehand, not everyone is going to have a printer handy, and not everybody uses maybe an electronic device. Wouldn't know how to use one myself, so
especially you can't really print it well unless you go and ask the reception, but it's not doesn't help the sort of user experience, does it? And also, I mean, one of you mentioned, I think, that one operator had suggested that it was the travel agent's responsibility to actually be advising customers about that. I mean, would you agree with that? Surely there should be another level of kind of reassurance if it's a government kind of you know, thing that they're insisting on. It seems strange that a travel agent should have to be responsible for telling their clients about that, because then what happens to the direct customers?
I think we have a care of duty to make sure that we're still operating that, offering to clients from our own safety these days, and especially as so many companies want to seem to sue you for everything, and customers as well. So we always see it as a sense of duty, whether we have to do it or not. But yeah, I do agree. The customers should be aware of exactly what they need to do themselves, make sure they've got it before they travel. I know our clients going off to Croatia tomorrow, all set to go, and hopefully you're aware of both sets of forms they need to have a happy holiday.
There's actually quite a lot of, obviously you've got to go through the booking and terms and conditions before you book the holiday, but then the travel advice after is getting longer and longer and longer and longer. Of, you know, this is what you've actually got to do. You know, it's getting to be where customers might look at it and go, "Oh, that's a lot. I'm not going to read that in detail." So that you've got to make sure that you prioritise what is important for when they're going. There's a lot now to think about when you actually make a booking.
Yeah, definitely.
I think as well as it changes from when they make the booking to when they're actually travelling. So what was relevant 3 weeks ago is maybe not relevant today. So it's been able to keep in contact with that customer to keep giving them the most up-to-date information. And I think that's the part where I think the government do have a big role to play. Because we've been very good at telling us what we need to do, but I think they haven't went out to the public to say this is what we have to do. We need to have a campaign to say, you know, if we're doing the track and trace and we want to make sure everybody's okay, then the government needs to say, when you're coming from abroad, this is what you need to do. You know, we went out and said we need to wear a mask, which is great, but if we need to wear a mask, what else do we need to do? So if we're going to a certain place, whether that's abroad or whatever, and even if it is just to say, go onto the Foreign Office website, I think there needs to be a stronger message from government on it to give it clarity for customers, because they just think, oh, it's just another thing I have to fill in. You know, it's like a Turkish visa. That's kind of, can I just do that at the airport? Can I do this? We get lots of customers who will try and say, oh, I don't know that I need it. I'm not always asked. Whereas now, because it's electronic, it's always done. And I think that was because there was a big campaign round about it. I think maybe we need to have the same.
Who would be responsible for that? Maybe an ABTA or government? Sorry.
I think it's even silly little things like if you look at Madeira, for instance, where 72 hours beforehand you have to provide evidence of a test. And a client this week's rightly phoned us up and said, well, we're flying over a bank holiday. So does that 72 hours include that bank holiday, or can we do it a little bit earlier?
We've had that problem with ski with the new year, because Austria currently has that. They have to have a negative test within 48 hours of travel. So if you're traveling on the 26th or 27th of December, that's nigh on impossible to get a negative test before you go for the new year. That's the peak date for ski for New Year. And there's no answer to it at the moment. So we are losing bookings. People are saying, well, I think I'll hang on to see if that advice changes. But of course, it could change back again before they travel. So there's a, you know, even though that Austria's on the list, you can travel there, you can't really. You have to look at it in more detail than that. Your own research to find out if they can actually go and if it's sensible to go to a certain destination.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, guys. I was just one very quick last question before we go. Obviously, the government has said that it's going to be reviewing its list of kind of countries that you can go to without having to quarantine or return, and it's slightly different for Scotland. But if you could all give me your number one destination that you'd like to see on the list next time it's updated. Maybe it's too difficult to choose. How about you, Helen? Anywhere in particular?
No, most of the places that we do are okay. People are not asking much about London. Maybe South Africa.
Okay. How about you, Lee?
I think some of the Latin America countries, if they're the more safer ones, still more undiscovered by a lot of people that might have travelled around the world, but lots of destinations we could pick.
Yeah, definitely. And how about you, Shona? Is there anywhere that's sort of outstanding that you need including? Would have been staying up to tomorrow, yesterday.
I know, it would be. I think probably South Africa is the one for me as well, but I think I would be more inclined to say I would rather they change the wording on it. It's not of places that you can go to, it's places where you're actually allowed into.
Yes,
as opposed to, here's a big list of countries, because that just, you know, we've got customers who are desperate to get back to Australia and New Zealand. And we know from the Australian and New Zealand government, they're not looking at having MD this year at all. But it's on our list to say that you can go there. But the reality is you can only go there if there's a medical emergency, family issues, etc., etc. You can't get there just as a holiday maker. So it kind of seems pointless from going out with another place that you can go to if in reality you can't actually get entry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a communications nightmare, isn't it? The fact that even on the day it was announced, there was a kind of a Foreign Office list and a DFT list, which didn't even match up, and there was no kind of one holistic announcement. It was sort of like, oh, anyway. So it's discussion for another day about potentially the need for a tourism minister.
I'd say so. I think that's probably the biggest weakness of everything that's happened, is that we didn't have somebody for the travel and tourism sector. It was, you know, I think we must be unique in UK for that.
Yeah, given the scale of the industry as well and everything.
Yeah, I think it's undervalued a great deal.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, all three of you, for joining me today. I think that was a really interesting discussion, and I hope the rest of your days and weeks are okay. And obviously it's going to be a very, very busy day ahead, I'm sure. But thanks for taking the time to join us. And we've had lots of people, about 40 people watching that live, and more I'm sure will watch it afterwards. So I'm sure it's all been very useful and helpful for people to see from their colleagues and peers in the industry how things are going for them. So thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
Okay, I've stopped the live stream. I'm still here. Woo! We're just not live on Facebook anymore, I hope. Although, you know, that would be funny if we still were. But thank you, everybody. That was really good. I know it's a lot of sort of doom and gloom this time round, unfortunately. Seems to kind of go up in peaks and troughs, like with everything, I think. But we'll get there. In a few months' time, I'm sure we'll be singing from the rooftops. Hopefully. Yeah, no, thanks a lot, everybody. And yes, I'll get back in touch again if we do another one in a few weeks or something. It'd be great.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
A lot.
Have a good day, guys.
You too. Bye.